The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the webinar that we planned for you today on MOBiNET, where we're actually going to launch the platform itself. We have a quite full program for you, so we'll try to be sharp and swift. My name is Rasmus Lindholm. I work for Artico ITS Europe, and I'm the coordinator of the project MOBiNET. We'll start with a small introduction on the platform itself by me. And then we'll go straight into the technical platforms and the core components of the platform itself. Will be done by the technical manager, Peter Paul Schachman from TNO. And then that's the components and the technical part. And how we are validating and how we are using this is through a variety of use cases. And Michael Senner from Allianz Telematics is going to show what the user-based insurance looks like and how user-based insurance is used in the MOBiNET platform. Then Yankee Duria from DLR will go through the Service Support Centre, because the Service Support Centre on the platform itself is where you will get help and where you can see the tutorials and see the videos and read about how the platform is working practically when you're trying to use it. Because at the end of the day, this is about gaining people's interest in the platform, because we in the consortium firmly believe that there is definitely a need for a platform like what we've built, and we're very proud of how far we've come. And now it is time to open it to external users, which is why I will round up in terms of the procedures of getting involved, agreements, what does that mean, and the different use cases. And then hopefully there'll be a little bit of time for Q&A in the end. I should also say that in between some of the different presentations we will do a bit of polling, so be ready when we launch the different questions. Just on a practical term, just practical in terms of how you interact with us. You will be seeing the presenter's desktop, so we will show the presentation from there. And on the right side you will see a collapsible menu, and you have problems with the audio. You can go to the audio setup, and there are other different functionalities in here. If you have questions, you can type them through the question panel through the presentations itself, and everyone will be muted through the session itself, otherwise it becomes a bit difficult to manage, but we will deal with your questions in the Q&A afterwards, so please just fire away as you think of them. That was a bit of practical things in the beginning. We will now go to the presentations themselves, which means that I will just give a very short introduction to MOBiNET itself. The introduction is not the essence of this webinar, it is really the technical elements, so I'll try to be brief. Voila, so basically MOBiNET is this European-wide e-marketplace for mobility services for businesses and users. That's how we started out, and we are very, very much focused on the B2B side of this. So basically we have a directory of mobility and transport-related data and services, meaning that either service providers are adding their services in the MOBiNET onto the MOBiNET platform, or describing their services on the MOBiNET platform, or content providers as Transport for London, who's part of it, have made their data available from their network. So it's really a marketplace where the different service providers or content providers are connecting behind the scene, using the different components that we have developed in the platform itself. And of course for that there is also a service development toolkit, so that it's easier to create new services or enhance existing services with data that's there. So basically a whole list of components. I'm not going to go into details for this because Peter Paul will explain that much better than I can in the end. but just see that you have an interface to consumer, to both through web interfaces, through mobile interfaces, there's dashboards, and a whole bunch of components within the MOBiNET Center itself that can be used for the development of the different services. That's the component side, and then of course to validate, and to demonstrate and to test that the platform is actually working, we have a very long range of use cases that are being shown in 8 different test sites across Europe. And one of these that you'll hear much more about later by Michael Senna is going to be the user-based insurance, so number 2 from the list. Just to emphasize that even though MOBiNET is an FP7 project and it is a research activity, we have very high ambitions beyond the edge of the project. And in fact, we are looking at models of how this could be moved forward and commercialized in the future after the project is finished by June next year. So what we're doing now with the launch of the technical platform is really to demonstrate and want as many people as possible to be part of this, because we also believe that the higher the number is in using a platform like MOBiNET, the bigger chance of success. And I'm very sure that once you've seen the capabilities of the platform, you would be very interested. So with that, I'm going to stop the short introduction itself, and then we will hand over to Peter Paul, who will take us through the technical components of the platform itself. So just bear with us for a second, we're just setting it up. So Peter Paul, you should be the presenter now.
Thank you, Rasmus, for the introduction. I hope you all can see my screen now. On behalf of the whole technical team, I will present in a bit more detail. It's only 10 minutes, so it will be still high level. I will present the technical platform and its core components. Of course, I'd like to thank all the other component developers. It's a group of 34 companies who have developed and validated it all. I have the honor to present it all. Credits go to everybody who did actually develop it. What will I do today? I will give a brief overview of the MOBiNET platform. I will focus a bit on the MOBi Center, which hosts the central core components, and I will look into the MOBi agents, which is the consumer interaction with the MOBi Center. And additional to these components, I will look into the MOBiNET tools, which we have developed for service developers to actually work with the platform. And later today, the Service Support Center, and maybe also some additional webinars, they will go into much more detail on the components. They have described it, how you can actually use it. I will just explain what the general idea about it is. Okay, so here we see the overview picture, which Rasmus already has shown a bit earlier. On the right top here, you can see the MOBi Center. This is the central location where our core components are hosted. We have 5 core components. I will name them now, and I will explain afterwards in more detail what the components are meant for and how they can be used. Most important, the nucleus is really the service directory. This is the marketplace, which Rasmus already mentioned before, where service providers and content providers have published their service. So and publishing means that you explain or illustrate where the service actually can be found and how it can be used and for what region it's relevant for. So the service directory contains a full list of all services and data sources, data content, which is actually available through MOBiNET. The second core component is the identity manager, which is both authentication as authorization, so that enables you to give access to the MOBiNET platform on different levels, from company level to developer level to end customer level. And it does the authorization, which is who are actually allowed to use these services published through the MOBiNET. The third component is the billing component. This is meant for a one-time fee or annual fees for using the MOBiNET, but it's also for business-to-business clearing functionality, so for enabling financial transactions between service providers and data providers who are part of the MOBiNET environment. Fourth component is the TSP manager, the telematic service providers, which is collecting data from all telematic service provider boxes inside vehicles, and they are making them available for all interested, typically service providers, but it can be anyone. Michael Senna will explain a lot more about this component in his presentation. The fifth component is the communication agent, and that is the link towards the MOBI agents, which you can see on the left of that, which are the local implementation of the MOBiNET platform running on smartphones. So we have an app developed, which is the MOBI agent, and this one is in direct contact with the communication agent, and by this the communication agent knows where all the MOBi agents are present, where they are driving around or where they are walking around, and it can send data specifically to those MOBi agents which are in the relevant area for a service provider. So there we have the sixth component, the MOBi agent, which I explained, which is twofold. It is the connection towards the communication agent, so it establishes a communication agent and a MOBi agent connection. The MOBi agent is also the interface, the human-machine interface for consumers towards the MOBi Center. So you can browse on your smartphone application, the MOBi agent, and see what kind of services are available, and you can receive output from services towards your smartphone. Okay, so this is one interface towards the MOBi Center. The other really important interface towards the MOBi Center is the dashboard, which is meant for service providers, content providers, both business to business as business to consumer, and to publish, to work with the whole MOBi Center. So service providers make their service available in the MOBi Center, but they can also search for other services which are interesting for them. They can establish links by that. They can establish billing links by that. So the dashboard is the real interface for the service providers and content providers to work with the MOBi Center. Next to these components, we have a couple of tools developed which makes life easier for service providers. We have two analytics services. We have the DQA, which is the data quality assessment tool, and we have an analytics server. I will explain a bit later what they actually do. And for this, and last but not least, for the service developers, we have a couple of tools developed how they can work with the MOBi Center. We have the SDK, which describes in detail all the APIs and how to work with these components, how they can manually or automatically use the different components from the MOBi Center and the MOBi agent. And we have also the privacy framework, which addresses specifically privacy aspects. So this is the general overview. I will now go into a bit more detail on the components. As mentioned before, the service directory, which is the core, I would say. This is where the services and data are registered, where they are published and can be found through the dashboard, which I mentioned, or through APIs, which are described in the SDK. And you can, using geographical location, type of services, all kind of text, which you can add to your service description, which enables others to find your service. So this service directory contains a list of, at the moment, 180 services, but that's just the start of it, of services and data sources. A specific example is the service discovery, which you can find if you work with the platform. This is already an implementation using an automatic service searching with the service directory API, using the mentioned parameters above, and also the IDM. So what does this service discovery do? And Michael will explain it a bit more detail as well later. It uses a combination of the IDM, so of a profile of an end user, and the components of the telematic service provider and the service directory, and it uses an automatic combination of those three. And by that it enables the connection between a service provider and another service provider. Okay, the service directory at the moment, it contains obviously the 10 MOBiNET services which Rasmus already introduced, but it is complemented by a lot of other data already. The identity manager, as mentioned before, so it does the both, the authentication, so user login with the different roles and rights from platform up to end users, and it does the authorization, which is the service access in a secure way. So it only allows you to use a service if the access to that has been given and granted to you. The billing component, I explained most of it already in the picture. It has different features. So it is actually the MOBiNET billing. So it arranges subscription and commissioning fee, the different possibilities in this. We have now implemented a couple of possibilities, but of course it will be the business model in the end which decides what will and what will not be used. And it does, very important, the clearing functionality. So the business to consumer invoicing is being facilitated by that. It keeps records of usage of components by services, and it enables one service provider to bill another service provider based on this usage. Then we have the telematic service provider, which I will not explain anymore because Michael will do that in a lot more detail than I can do it now. We have the communication agent, which I explained, keeps record of the location of all MOBI agents driving around or walking around, which are connected to the MOBiNET platform. And it connects the service providers who can send data to this communication agent and then forward it to relevant end users of the service provider where they are, if they are in the relevant area. Then we have the analytics tool, so the data quality assessment tool, which enables you to assess the quality of offered data sets on a predefined set of indicators. So we have like floating car data set and fixed sensors, and if data sets like that are offered to the MOBiNET platform, this tool can be used to automatically assess whether this tool meets the criteria which is necessary for your service. And the network analytics it's also a tool which helps service providers use the MOBiNET platform. It gives statistical information about the usage of your services. It gives information about quality of networks used in the MOBiNET. So they both are tools for service providers to be able to check the quality of the service and the quality of data sets offered through the MOBiNET. Well, the two ways of accessing the MOBI Center I already explained. The MOBI agent, the Android application running on smartphones, which gives access to the MOBI Center for consumers. And besides that, it has this communication manager components, which I explained, which is the direct link from the communication agent, which is running in the MOBI Center. So this is a direct connection, the communication manager, communication agent. This is establishes links, and then service providers are able to send data, services, output to end users without actually having to know where they are located. The communication agent keeps track of that. And the other core component, the dashboard, is the interface, the user interface for service providers and content providers to use it. And I will demonstrate that in a short while by actually logging into the platform. And then we have the Service Support Center developed, which is part of the tools that we are providing to service providers and all kind of other users of the platform. And that describes in detail how the components are working, how they can be accessed with the APIs, with frequent asked questions, with videos. Janki will explain that in a while. And then we have the two SDKs, which I mentioned before. So I will very briefly now go and log into the platform to show that we how it looks like, the platform, but of course it will in the end be up to yourself as well to play and use the platform and experience it for yourself. So here we see the opening screen of the MOBiNET platform and where you can log in. I will log in with my MOBiNET account, which I have created. So then we enter into the MOBiNET dashboard. I could have done this through the Mobi agent, but that's quite difficult to demonstrate it, and of course it's limited only to searching in the service directory. The dashboard, the portal for service developers and content providers, and this is the main interface towards the platform. And here you can see that I logged in as myself, this is the logout post, and here you see all the components which I talked about earlier. And we have the service directory, where you can search for the services. Here you can see the 118 service description which I already mentioned. And let's take the first one, the ad hoc priority service, which we have built or published in the service directory, and which is validating different components. Here you can see there's a small description about the service. It has some the different characters of the service, the owning company, the text that you can find it on if you use the advanced search functionality, and you see also the relevant area on the map where the service should be used for. So that also means if this is if you use this service and you drive around in this area, the mentioned communication agent component which I mentioned before, then notice that you're driving in this area with the Mobi agent going around there, and it will send data only if you're in this relevant area. Well, there are a lot of services, so I will not click on more details, but you get the picture. And this is the search discovery functionality, which is being used by the usage-based insurance, which Michael will explain a bit later. Well, here's the different analytics tools, so the data quality assessment and the network analytics. We have some functionality for the billing components, which I mentioned. The data format catalog, that is the different data formats which are used. So if you're providing a data to the platform, you can also describe here in which data format you are using, so people can also search for that type of data format. Well, the support, this is what Janki will explain later, how you can get the different type of supports and the explanation in the Service Support Center, and the identity manager, which I mentioned about hosting both the authentication, your own identity, as the authorization, which allows you to use different services only if you have been given access to this component. Looking at the time, I think I should stop my presentation. I would like to mention that, of course, this is just a brief overview. Janki will explain a bit later with the Service Support Center in more detail where more information can be found about the different components and how to use them. And there may be, I'm not sure about that yet, there may be additional webinars, for instance, where we can go into much more detail as well. But I hope to have given you at least a small brief overview on the different components what we have built the last couple of years. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Peter Paul. Can you give the screen back to Maria?
Yes, I will. No,
and while you're working out the technical details, let me just say that we've received 2 questions, and it's not because we've forgotten about these questions, but we will take the questions towards the end during the Q&A session. Thank you very much, Peter Paul, for a description of the components and the platform itself. And with that, I would like to hand over. I can see, Peter Paul, you're still the presenter. Ah, voila. Here we go. Thank you. With that, I will hand over to Mike Senna from Allianz Telematics to show us or take us through the UBI use cases.
Thank you, Rasmus. Thank you, Peter Paul. You've covered a number of the components that will be included in this presentation, so I'll try to make up a little bit of the time that we're behind a bit. Okay, so this is an overview, very brief overview of one of the use cases or services that we came into the MOBiNET project to develop. Allianz Telematics is a telematics service provider for the Allianz Group, which is one of the largest insurance companies in Europe. The primary reason that we brought this use case into the project was that it was specifically related to onboard units, whether those units were installed in vehicles at factory or whether they were put in afterwards. So I'm going to go through the use case. First slide. What is usage-based insurance? Why do we use MOBiNET for usage-based insurance? And what are the extended benefits for mobility services? So briefly, usage-based insurance is really an alternative to the kind of insurance that we've had for our cars for many years, which is setting it based on historical risk. UBI uses the data that's collected from the vehicle, either in real time or as a download after the fact, and it uses that information to provide the customer with an invoice, either at the end of the month or quarter or the end of the year, based on the criteria which have been agreed as part of the service contract. Next slide. Today, there are a number of countries where usage-based insurance is in effect. Italy is one of those. Great Britain is another. The United States. It's not prevalent over many countries, but there are a number of reasons, and one of those reasons is we're trying to address in the MOBiNET project. Today, UBI devices talk to one insurance company. What we do with MOBiNET is we match the devices to the UBI provider, and I'll show you how that's done. What this means is that the users of a device, let's say it's a BMW Connect system, or it's a Mercedes-Benz Embrace telematic system, those users of those devices can choose a usage-based insurance provider on the basis of contract, on the basis of terms, rather than having to use the provider that comes with the vehicle. So in very simple terms, the user is in control. Next slide. The extended benefits of this is that we don't need to standardize on board the vehicle. We can standardize at a point where all of the messages are being sent, and that is with the telematic service providers. We can address both legacy users, that's anyone who's got a system in their vehicle right now, or new onboard devices. And that gives the users maximum choice and the greatest control over the services that they are provided with. Next, yep. So we use the identity manager for authenticating that the person who is coming into the system actually has access to the system. The dashboard, number two, the dashboard offers the user interface for any of the service providers that register their services. In this case, it would be the insurance companies for the end users to identify. Number three, the service directory stores all of this information on services which are registered in MOBiNET. Now, it's important to note here that MOBiNET is not storing data. We're storing the information about a user, we're storing information about a service provider and the services, but we don't store data. Data is passed through the system from the origin of that data to the eventual uses of the data. Number four, the MOBiAgent component, as Peter Paul identified, is used to gain access, and that can be through a mobile device, or it can be through a portable device like we're using right here. The potential user or the potential customer of the MOBiNET of the usage-based insurance identifies the service that is required, through the service directory, where the insurance companies have stored their data. The service directory number 5 consists of widgets that run on the dashboard and identifies what the services are and allows the customers to gain access to those services. The TSP manager is a very important component here, and I'll show this in a bit more detail. But briefly, every vehicle that has a built-in device connects to what we have called a telematic service provider. That means that there's a one-to-one connection between the vehicle and a provider of a service that connects to that vehicle, whether it's an OEM or it's an aftermarket system. This telematic service provider is connected in as a service provider within the MOBiNET platform. So if it's a wireless car or if it's a BMW offering their own services, they are part of this ecosystem that we have set up with MOBiNET. So next slide, and the next. Will you have access to back one, yep, or back two? There we go.
One down.
There we go. One more. That's right. In our use case description, we have a vehicle that includes as built-in a device which can offer data about the use of that vehicle, whether it's the distance that's been traveled, other types of information about how the vehicle is used. That data is passed to the telematic service provider. The data is then transferred to the eventual usage-based insurance company, whether AXA or Allianz or any insurance provider. And if you go to the next slide, it'll be a lot easier to see how this works. So here we have another view of the MOBi Center, where Allianz, in this case, in our use case, Allianz Insurance has used the dashboard to include information about the usage-based insurances that it is going to provide to anyone who asks for them, anyone who searches for them. And the kind of information that is required is distance traveled, day of the week, and time of day. Any insurance provider can detail different types of insurance. In this case, we've used this example of the type of insurance. In some cases, it's very, very simple. It's just how far the car has traveled during a particular time. In other cases, it's much more detailed, including hard turns and hard brakes. So Allianz Telematics has included information and placed that into the service directory. Next case. The telematic service provider has registered information about the system that's in that vehicle, which is going to be asking for usage-based insurance. It has delivered to the service directory information about what it can deliver. Now, the whole trick with MOBiNET, and this is what we'll be doing inside of MOBiNET, is matching the vehicle's ability to deliver data with the insurance provider's request for the kind of data that it needs. If we go to the next slide. So I think we'll pass over this one. So what the user does is says, I have a Fiat 500. I would like to have usage-based insurance. He comes into the MOBi Center, searches in the service directory, finds a number of different potential suppliers of that data, and then what MOBiNET does is provide the URLs to the service providers, and the user is then able to go to the service providers, find the service that best fits his or her needs, and then has a contract directly with the service provider. If we go to next slide, one more. And the final step in this is once this contract is completed, the insurance company registers the customer in the service directory. The TSP manager, take the next slide, and the next. The TSP manager is then responsible for delivering the data from the user's vehicle, the eventual customer's vehicle, to the insurance company that will provide the insurance for that customer. Now, I've gone through this rather quickly. I hope that you've got a decent overview of what we're trying to accomplish here. But the main point is that what MOBiNET does is allows the customer to choose any number of usage-based insurance, and it's not just usage-based insurance. The example here can be any type of service that can be delivered to a vehicle using MOBiNET as the platform, the marketplace platform, to connect the eventual users to the potential service suppliers. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mike. We're going to launch a poll based on what you just heard from Mike, so you should be able to see it now regarding this UBI service. So let's see how we go.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you. We can see that the different questions are... I can see that the answers are coming in, so we're going to keep the poll open just for a few more seconds before we close it. Very good, thank you. Close the poll. Thank you for having voted. There's also another technical question or another question that have come in regarding the UBI service, but again, we will take that in the Q&A session towards the end. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Yankee from DLR, who will take us through the Service Support Centre. So I think Maria is just making you, Yankee, now the presenter. Voila, there you go. We can all see your screen, Yankee, so the phone is yours.
Can you see my presentation?
No, let's just... 1 second. No, I think you have to click share my screen, Yankee.
Yes, I'm looking for it. Just 1 second.
Should be at the top of the panel, where you have the big play button.
That button is not working here. It says that it is it's not active here, where I can say that show my screen.
Okay, Yankee, what we can do is we can take over the screen, and then you have to tell us when we have to change presentation. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Only during the live demo probably we have to figure out, because I wanted to give a demonstration of SSC.
Yeah, we'll have to see what we do.
Change present.
Yankee, I think you have to give us the control back as the presenter.
I have already.
Seem to be having a little bit of technical issues at the moment. Just give us a second, we'll try to figure it out. Are you sure you gave us back the control, Yankee? Because we can't do it either from here.
Yes, I did. It tells me here that you are the presenter and you have the control.
What do you currently see on the screen?
I see your name, Attico, organizer, presenter, and next to that there is an arrow which says presenter has control. And next to mine it says cannot take control. Next to my name.
Okay, let's try something else. Peter Paul, you're still with us. We will try to make you the presenter, Peter Paul.
Okay.
You can try to give it back to us again to see if there's a glitch somewhere in the system.
Okay.
Now it says that Peter Paul is the presenter.
Yeah. And I gave you back the screen.
Thank you, and it still doesn't allow us to share the screen.
Seems to be stuck in the polling question. Don't you have to close that or something?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we are trying. We just noticed, but it says closed.
Yeah. Now I don't see the question.
Now it's closed.
Now it's closed. That's fine. Now you can share your screen, Maria.
And now you can give to Yankee as well, I think.
Oh yeah, try it.
Probably close yours again and then give me the control.
Excellent.
There you go, Yankee.
Yes.
Sorry everyone for that.
So I hope everyone can see now. Okay.
Yeah,
That's great.
There you go.
That's great. That's great. Okay. Sorry about that. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janki Dodia. I'm from DLR. It's a research organization. It is German Aerospace Center in Germany. Welcome to the MOBiNET platform. I will now present the Service Support Center, which is the main support tool available to all the platform users. Let's see if this can. All right, sorry. I'm sorry about this. I think I have trouble showing one of the screens here.
Just go to the next slide.
Okay, yeah, I'll just go to the next slide. The Service Support Center is the first point for users who need information about MOBiNET platform, for usage of the platform, or its components, or for developing and publishing the services on MOBiNET platform. It is basically a website integrated within the dashboard. So here you can see, here a user of the platform finds all the useful information on how to get support, how to develop a new service, how to migrate an existing service, or how to get in contact for general or technical support. And for these reasons, we have three main parts as highlighted here. We have terms of service, contact, and support center. The support center, basically what you can find here, it provides information about MOBiNET, and it gives a practical guidance on how to use the service development kit, which Peter Paul mentioned in his presentation, and how to use the platform components of the MOBi Center. MOBiNET provides the service development kit, as Peter Paul mentioned, and it also provides some tools to develop, deploy, and operate the services in MOBiNET. And within the service support center, you will find sections that are dedicated to the descriptions of steps to set up your working environment, to implement a MOBiNET service, a MOBiNET client. You can also find detailed descriptions of MOBiNET service description file. You will also find sections dedicated to explaining the dashboard itself, its widgets, the login process, etc. And in addition to that, you will also get information about all the components of MOBiNET platforms. And the last bit, which is quite important, is that you will find some tutorials as well, and this I can demonstrate it to you later on. Let's go to the next slide. So here you can see this is the main sections of the Service Support Center, and later, after discussing these set of slides, I will demonstrate that the SSC live to you, and there you can see the subsections within all of these topics. Let's go to the, yeah. So it is one of the things, before going for the live demonstration, I would like to inform is about the user and rights roles within MOBiNET and how it affects the access to Service Support Center. The information in Support Center is divided, let's say for simplicity, I would say into two user groups: normal end users of the platform, which are allowed only to see certain sections about the basic usage of the platform, while the developers are able to see information for developing purposes like the API of the components and the developing of services. And this is because within MOBiNET, users have different roles with different permissions. I don't want to go into the roles into the detail, but you can find this within the documents section of the troubleshooting section here. I can show it to you again. Within this section here, there's a document section, and you can find it in the dashboard development documentation, or you can also find it in the service development kit documentation. But here, here the table shows the rights to particular sections of Support Center according to the user roles. So for normal users, they can see the overview, using the dashboard, troubleshooting some parts of it, like the frequently asked questions and security consideration. And the users with developer rights can see all the sections within the Service Support Center. The other two widgets that I mentioned earlier in Service Support Center are Terms of Services, and this section provides the terms for usage of MOBiNET platforms and its services, the access to and use of services conditioned on users' acceptance of and compliance of these terms. You will probably know more about how the agreements and about the roles and rights, how to get them, in the next section by Rasmus, which will be the next presentation. And the third widget is the contact widget, and this provides the information where user can contact the platform owner to get the developer rights, or can contact the developers for some kind of technical support they require for each of the components. All right. We can now go through the live walkthrough of the Service Support Center. So to begin with, let me share the screen. For instance, this is the login screen, and you log in here. So I'm going to first log in as a normal user. There we go. And here you see the dashboard. You've seen this before when Peter Paul demonstrated it. And here's the support. This is where you find the 3 widgets about the support center. So terms of service, contact, and support center. And if I go to the support center, you can see because I don't have developer rights at the moment with this account, I cannot see all the sections that I showed you earlier in the presentation slides. So I can see the overview section, the using the dashboard sections, and the troubleshooting section. Now let's see how it looks with the, this is where I have the developer rights, and if I go to the support center, there we go. So you see all the sections here. I will quickly go through the sections and give you some overview about each section. This is the first section, which is the overview section. It mainly consists of general information about MOBiNET. You can see here there are 2 ways to access these information. Then you have MOBiNET components and MOBiNET use cases, which Rasmus had mentioned, and one of the examples which Michael had presented. And below you can find information about the rights to Service Support Center. Moving on, then we have service deployment. The service deployment section consists of information on how to create a new service or migrate an existing service using MOBiNET and publish the service on MOBiNET. It also consists of a tutorial explaining the creation, registration, and usage of service. So, for example, let's go to the first one. Here, if you click on Java, which is within the scope of this project, here you can find all the tools that you can download, the SDK, the editor, the Identity Manager library here. And you can click on this and you can download these libraries. Here you can find the instruction, the procedure to implement the service, how to do that. You can go from here, creating a service. You can go how to create a service. You can also find the PDF documentation of each of these. For instance, here we have, you can download the tutorial here, it says, and it takes you to the document section, where you can find all the documentation about all the component tools, tutorials, everything. The next section is the service description. Oh, sorry, I have to give you some information about the tutorial, which is quite important. The tutorial section, it consists of 3 buttons you can see here, and within the scope of this project, a Java tutorial is provided. And this tutorial guides the user into creating a basic web service. The intention is to explain the basic principles of the RESTful web services and give you skills to create one. However, there are a lot more advanced and sophisticated things that can be considered if needed, and here in the possible next steps is where you can go and you can find out what you can do more with the component APIs as well. It also shows development of web service and usage of this service. Here you can see you can create a web service, you can register a web service, and you can use the web service. For instance, if I go to preparing the software environment, and you can see down here we have 4 expandable steps. Okay, and you can also download the tutorial here, and now we can move on to the next section. The next section is about the service description. It provides information on service description files and the usage of an Eclipse-based service description editor, which is also an important feature provided by MOBiNET. A service description file describes the service, its functionality, how to access the service, in which geographical area the service is available, and much more. And all the necessary information to use and interact with the service is described there. And this here, you can see there are some mandatory fields that you need to place in this file, and they are also presented here. You can find an example XML file, and you can also download more information about it here. The next part is the service description editor, and here you can find how to use the Eclipse-based editor and also the standalone editor. You can download the standalone editor as I showed you here at the Tools for MOBiNET SDK. The next section is the component APIs. This section provides the description of each component API and related tools that are available with MOBiNET, and it also provides links to a very detailed and comprehensive documentation about it. For instance, here we have the description of service directory, and if you want to download more information, you can download it here. When you click here, it takes you back to the documentation. Then you have Identity Manager similarly, and Analytics Server, Data Format Catalog, Communication Agent, Data Quality Assessment, and Billing Support. The next section is the security consideration. And here, the intention of this information security is to defend information from unauthorized access, use, modification, or destruction. This information here is provided to basically sensitize the users, and you can see there are 5 sections in it, and you can go through these sections related to the security consideration. The MOBiNET platform is designed and operated to reach the best possible data security, and there are 5 relevant subtopics as you can see it. Let's go to the next section, which is quite important as well, which is using the dashboard. So the dashboard integrates access to different components and tools. This is the dashboard, and all these consist of different widgets related to each component and tools, and this is explained in this section. So if you, for instance, go and you want to find out what login and how to do it, you can find it here. You can also go to the service directory and all the related. So this is the service directory, this is the search services here, how to do it, what you can do here. It's all the instructions are provided here. And for instance, you have billing, and for billing you have quite many here, and you can go to the information here. The next section is the troubleshooting section, and it is available to further help the users of the platform. It provides mainly 4 kinds of support tools. One is the checklist, as you can see, and the documents, the videos, and an FAQ, which is a frequently asked questions, and this section will be constantly updated. The checklist provides an expandable menu with options that enable and support service providers to create and publish services in the MOBiNET environment. This includes, you can see here, for instance, when you want to prepare a service, you can check all the steps. You can go back to it. You can trace your steps back and see if you have missed something. And you have 5 sections basically: service description file creation, publish web services, debugging a web service, and localization. And then you have the documentation, which is a knowledge base of the whole platform here, and you can find all comprehensive documentation about the APIs. There are examples to refer to, and there are very short extraction for developers of each components and development APIs, and there is description of service description file, an example of it. You also have the service development kit, the latest release here, and all the instructions. Then we have the videos for developers. Here you can find all the videos from the latest release for each of the components. And last we have, we have the frequently asked questions, which is taking a bit of time to load, but here you can find I'm not sure why I'm not able to access this right now, but here you can find the frequently asked questions, and these consist of all the anticipated frequently asked questions about the platform, and as our experiences will increase and with your feedback from the platform users, we will continuously update this section. So I think that is all from me about the Service Support Center. There will be another poll question, I know, and probably you can provide us your feedback about it. There we have the frequently asked questions.
Thank you, Yankee.
Thank you.
If you can give us back the presenter role.
Yes.
Actually 3 o'clock already, so we're going to have to do things a little bit differently in order to meet the timeline, which we obviously won't be doing. But just to let you know that all the questions that we received, we have actually we have them documented, and we will respond to you individually in terms of who has answered the questions. We will also make all the presentations available on our website as soon as this is finished. So let me just wrap up by quickly through the procedures. You've heard a lot today, and it is, we think, a very useful tool and quite important to get engaged in some of this. We've already tried with the company called National Mobile Payment that was providing on-street parking in Hungary, where they became part of it and started using the platform and could actually integrate with the on-street parking service in Italy, meaning that when you go from Hungary with your Hungarian app, you'll be able to pay for your parking in Italy. So it's things like this that really has big potential of MOBiNET. In terms of getting involved, I mean, just on the website, in terms of getting involved, there will be access directly through the public website in terms of next week onwards. It will be read-only access, as Yankee showed you in the beginning, but you'll be able to browse around and see what this is all about. If you think this is interesting, and I would really recommend you to do so, please just send us an email. We will have a look, after which we go through the cooperation agreement. The cooperation agreement itself is basically a short description of what MOBiNET is and what it has to offer. There's a licensing agreement that needs to be signed, and then what we ask is a very short description of the use cases by you. And last but not least, we would also like to ask for some validation feedback when you've played around with this. And as Yankee showed, there's a lot of help, a lot of documents and tutorials available in the Service Support Center, but there is also 2 different emails related to either more generic questions or technical questions. So also please feel free to use this when you have questions. It's 5 minutes past 3, so I would like to thank the presenters for being part and to present the different parts of MOBiNET. I'd also like to thank all the participants. It was a pleasure for us to give you an insight of where we are, and as I said, we are going to make this publicly available through our website, and we really do encourage you to get involved. What I will finish off with is to say that in June next year, we will have the final event where we will try to do a big splash of where we are with MOBiNET. We will do some demonstrations during the European ITS conference in Strasbourg towards the end of June. And obviously, as external user, if you're part of this and would like to be part of that promotion during the Congress, that's definitely also something that we will be looking at. So with that, thank you very much, everyone. And for those of you who's going on an early Christmas break by the end of this week, have a Merry Christmas. And for the rest of you, we hang in there a little bit longer. Thank you very much.